Okay, this is part 2 of the prayer conference titled The Wake Up Call. We introduced Islamism yesterday. We tried to answer where Nigeria started from. Today, we shall answer the next question. How did Islamism enter Nigeria? Brethren will recollect that yesterday we did mention that there is a difference between Islam and Islamism. And what we are dealing with in Nigeria is basically Islamism. It is Islamism that is responsible for the jihad. It is Islamism that is responsible for the genocide. And that is what is responsible for the politics of religion that is threatening to pull Nigeria asunder. So how did Islamism enter Nigeria? Traditionally, the Muslim sect in northern Nigeria is the Sufi sect. The Sufi sect is not a violent strain of Islam. It's more of a tolerant, accommodating, moderate Islam, more like what we find in the southwest of Nigeria. But it was supplanted by a different brand of Islam. In 1962, the late Sardauna of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello, embarked on series of trips to Muslim countries in West Africa, in North Africa, and then in the Middle East, with the objective of unifying Islam. It was called Islamic Unification Trips. He was in Saudi Arabia, and as a result of his efforts, the world's first Muslim League conference was held in Saudi Arabia, I think in 1962 or 1963. Now, on those trips, the Sardauna was accompanied by Sheikh Abubakar Gumi, the father of the current Ahmad Gumi. When they were in Egypt, Sheikh Gumi came across publications of the Islamic Brotherhood. You remember yesterday, in part 1, we mentioned that Islamic Brotherhood started in 1928 in Egypt, in a village called Ismaila, in response to what Mustafa Kemal did in Turkey. The Ataturk dismantled the caliphate, the Ottoman Caliphate, and some Muslims felt that was a betrayal of Islam. The Ataturk took that decision in 1924, 99 years ago. We are now in 2023. So the Ataturk took the decision 99 years ago in 1924, and by 1928, a group of Muslims led by Hassan al-Banna met in Egypt and started the Islamic Brotherhood. We shared yesterday the objectives of the Islamic Brotherhood, and they started political Islam called Islamism. While Islam is a religion, Islamism is not a religion. Islamism is political ideology. And what that political ideology teaches is that wherever Islam is, Islam must dominate. and we are going to see it later, the plans that have been made for Nigeria. That's why when you look at the structure of government today in Nigeria, the president is a Muslim, the vice president is a Muslim, the speaker of the house is a Muslim, the chief justice of the federation is a Muslim. So the first 5 offices in Nigeria, the Muslims hold 4. And a Christian, for now, is allowed to be the head of Senate, just to calm nerves. But the objective is everything. When we get to Abuja Declaration 1989, all these things will be made clearer. So, Sheikh Gumi brought the Handbook of Islamic Brotherhood, came to Nigeria with it in 1962. The first organization they established in 1962 was Jama'atu Nasril Islam, JNI. The meaning of that is the Group for the Victory of Islam. Now the question is, victory over what? And victory over whom? By starting the Group for the Victory of Islam, there are scholars who believe that war was declared. 1, war against democracy. 2, war against the non-Muslims. And it is a war that is now blown open. We are all seeing it now. So JNI became the driver of the new ideology. Interestingly, when OIC met in London in 1983 and had a strategy meeting on how to turn Africa into an Islamic continent, OIC decided that they assessed the situation in Nigeria, and OIC came to the conclusion that JNI was not strong enough to do what they wanted to do. So OIC established another organization called Islam in Africa Organization to be the driver of the Islamization of the entire African continent. We will share more about that later as we progress in this presentation. Now let's move forward and look at the role of the British Empire. A few days ago, Mr. David Cameron, the Foreign Minister of UK, raised a delegation of OIC member countries and Islamic nations to intervene in the Israel-Hamas conflict, and Nigeria was put in that delegation, which we queried yesterday that it is contrary to the Constitution of Nigeria. But David Cameron did not start it. This has been an age-long agenda of Britain and the United Kingdom, that the only religion that is suitable for Nigeria and for Africans is Islam. The British deliberately handed Nigeria over to the North at independence. And that structure which the British established is yet to be dismantled. I will say that again for intercessors, because this is a prayer assignment. The structure of the British is yet to be dismantled. We must prayerfully dismantle it. In 17th August 1953, the Secretary of State for the Colonies, Oliver Littleton, wrote in a confidential dispatch, of which he stated we cannot let the North down. That's the colonial government in 1953 saying we cannot let the North down. We cannot disappoint the North. As Nigeria was preparing for independence, there was another agenda running underground that a section of the country must be made to dominate. Now, when you come across the word North, you need to be aware when you hear Northern interest, Northern caucus, Northern position. North is the term that is used to politically describe the Fulani interest. North simply means Fulani. What Oliver Littleton simply say is we cannot let the Fulani down. We could have shared the story about what happened in 1979 when National Party of Nigeria was going to pick his presidential candidate. May God give us time to be able to say some things, but we need to hurry because we have a lot to share tonight. In 21st October 1958, Britain said, and what I'm quoting for you are facts from the British archives. Certain documents have now been made public, and a book has been written on it. Certain classified documents have now been declassified in the British archives, and people now have access to the history of Nigeria and the correspondence, the communications, the things that went on before Nigeria received independence. In 21st October 1958, Britain said, nevertheless, so far as the United Kingdom is concerned, it will appear that in the last resort, we must make sure that the government of Nigeria is strong, even if possibly undemocratic or unjust, unquote. We must make sure the government of Nigeria is strong. Which government? The government of the Fulani. Remember, we cannot let the North down. We cannot let the North down was not referring to the Hausas. It was not referring to the Kanuris. It was referring to the Fulanis. And the British adopted the policy. And that is what has been featuring in governance in Nigeria. We saw it in 2015. We saw it in 2019. We saw it replicated in 2023. Even though this time they picked the candidate from the Southwest, it is still the same agenda. Our sister who led prayers said that the foundation of Nigeria was unjust. The foundation of Nigeria was unfair. It was as if she read my notes. Because I have here already written down that Nigeria was battered on tripod of injustice, inequality, and unfairness. We continue. The British agenda. The British conspiracy was not just against Nigeria, but those whom Frederick Lugard referred to as the so-called Christians. Now we need to explain a little bit about Lord Lugard. Lord Lugard was the son of a reverend, interestingly. But the man in his lifetime disliked Christians, particularly the Christians in Lagos. You know, in those days, it was the North and then the colony of Lagos before you now had the two protectorates. And as of the time Lord Lugard got to Nigeria, Nigeria has been producing university graduates from 1821. People like Herbert Macaulay had graduated in engineering. People like I've forgotten the name of this man who became lawyers. So many of them, lawyers, engineers, were already in Lagos as of the time Lugard came to Nigeria. So when Lugard spoke, they would answer him. They were not bowing down to him. And Lugard despised them. He didn't like them, so he referred to them as the so-called Christians in Lagos. Lugard sent a report to both houses of parliament on 2nd September 1903. 11 years before the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates. And Lugard said, I quote, "I believe myself that the future of the virile races of the protectorate lies largely in the regeneration of the Fulani, their ceremonial, their colored skins." Please note that, their colored skins. My desire to utilize the Fulani as rulers has been described in a former report. Now, you need to understand that this era, 1903, the 19th century, was an era in which a man's value was measured by the color of his skin. The lighter your skin, the more valued you are as a human being. The darker your skin, the less value you have as a human being. So when the British got to Nigeria, the light-skinned people that they met were the Fulanis. The Negroes, the African, the indigenous ethnic nationalities are dark-colored. So that's what Lugard was referring to. Their colored skins is closer to our own. Then Lugard went on, one-party government should perhaps be regarded with more sympathy. Please note that. This was 1903. One-party government should perhaps be regarded with more sympathy as being the first natural substitute for the former benevolent colonial administration. I think that positive planning for one-party government might be more in accordance with the facts from the British Colonial Office. In 1989, I put a note here, lift your eyes and observe what is going on in Nigeria today. And you can easily see that Nigeria is being prepared as a one-party state. This is a statement from the Abuja Declaration 1989. Remember what Lugard said at the beginning of the last century. Now read what was said in a conference in 1989 in Abuja. The conference decided that the steering committee should also work out detailed plans for the transforming a national political party in each member nation into a national Islamic party, and that the National Republican Convention, NRC of Nigeria, should be made to serve this purpose in Nigeria as the only recognized national Islamic party of Nigeria. These political parties so approved shall be the only ones to produce leading government, executive, and legislative functionaries. The NRC of Nigeria and other parties shall have their names changed to reflect Islamic nature of their purpose. This is documented. This document is authentic and it is available. The decision was taken in Abuja in 1989. It is called Abuja Declaration. That's why I referred us a few minutes ago to what is the structure of governance today. The president is Muslim. The vice president is Muslim. The speaker of the house is Muslim. The chief justice of the federation is Muslim. In a country in which Christians constitute the majority. Alice Bailey told her disciples, we spoke about Alice Bailey before on this prayer altar. She was a Satanist, and she produced the 10-point plan for the New Age government. Alice Bailey told her disciples, whatever change you succeed in implementing, get the church to endorse it. Get the church to officially cede ground. Even Satanists recognize the spiritual authority of the church, that the church has to endorse something before it can get done on planet Earth. We don't need to go over the story. Our church leaders endorsed APC in 2015. They endorsed APC in 2019. They endorsed APC in 2023. So whatever APC is doing, whatever APC has done, APC has the endorsement of the church to do it. And that's why APC is doing it. APC is getting away with it. It is the church. Watch APC. Watch APC. We mentioned yesterday, everywhere that APC, in each state in which APC lost the election, APC will go back there and contend with the rightful owner and make sure they snatch that victory out of his hand. They are trying it in Zamfara, in Kano, in Plateau, in Nasarawa. Watch APC. Now we come to the next point. There are two races that make up Nigeria. There are two races. Nigeria has 389 ethnic nationalities, but it has two races. There is the race of the African ethnic groups, ethnic nationalities, and there is the other race that is Arab race. The first race, the indigenous ethnic nationalities, are the Negroes. And the race that is of Arab descent are the Negroid. Now, not everyone in Nigeria is Negro. Nigeria is made up of the Negroes and the Negroid. The Fulanis are not Negro. Fulani is Negroid. They are of the Arab descent. And the views of the Arab concerning the Negro is not complimentary at all. It's not complimentary at all. But we put that aside for now. During the era of colonialism, as we mentioned earlier, the value of a man was determined by the color of his skin. So the Fulani, fairer in color, was more appealing to the British. At independence, the impression was created that all Nigerians wanted liberal democracy. That was what they all took to the Constitutional Conference in Britain. Awolowo, Sardauna, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and Tony Enahoro. That Nigerians wanted liberal democracy, parliamentarian democracy. But what they did not realize was that the Negroid, the Nigerians of Arab descent, wanted a system of governance of which, I quote, an essential ingredient is Islamic law. But they didn't push it. They did not struggle too much. They kept it suppressed. And the likes of Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and Nahoro thought the entire nation wanted democracy. But it is not so. And we are beginning to see the fracture in the nation now, as there is now a dual conflicting ideology in Nigeria. One group wants democracy. Another group wants Sharia, an essential ingredient of Islamic law. And right now, unless God steps in, unless the intercessors hold on to God without wavering, that God, you have to repair the foundation of this country. Because right now, Sharia is being used to rule Nigeria, not democracy. That's why votes are not counting. Votes don't count. They just tell people to go to the polling booth to go and satisfy themselves. But after they vote, the vote does not count because it is no longer democracy. Now let's move forward very quickly. This one we are very familiar with. The statement of the Sardauna 12 days after Nigeria became independent gives us a mindset into what the northern power brokers, the oligarchy, what the oligarchy has in mind for Nigeria, the agenda that is still being pursued. I quote, the new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather, Usman Dan Fodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We use the minorities in the north as willing tools and the south as a conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over us, and never allow them to have control over their future. We reject this in the name of Jesus. We shall have control over our future in the mighty name of Jesus. This was quoted by Parrot newspaper, October 12, 1960, 12 days after Nigeria got independence. Till today, no one has refuted this statement. Then we look at what is the objective of Boko Haram. Abubakar Shekau said in 2012 in a video, this war is not political, it is religious. It is between Muslims and unbelievers. He used the word alne in that video. It will stop when Islamic religion is the determinant in governance in Nigeria, or in the alternative, when all fighters are annihilated and no one is left to continue the fight. I warn all Muslims at this juncture that any Muslim who assists an unbeliever in this war should consider himself an infidel and should consider himself dead. This is the statement of Abubakar Shekau. So if anybody comes out and say what Shekau is doing is not religious, it is, you are using takia for us, it is religious. Let's go back. Let's go down memory lane to 1942. When West African Students Union wrote to the emirs in the north of Nigeria soliciting their support for the agitation for independence from colonial rule, the emirs responded, holding this country together is not possible except by means of the religion of the Prophet. If they want political unity, let them follow our religion. That statement still stands till today. Now let's quickly run through the Abuja Declaration, excerpts from the Abuja Declaration 1989. Islam in Africa organization organized this conference. Remember, OIC, I mentioned briefly, held a strategy meeting in London in 1983. And in that strategy meeting, they decided that JNI was not strong enough to do what they have in mind for the Islamization of Africa. So they established Islam in Africa organization. It was Islam in Africa organization that 5-6 years later came to Abuja and organized this conference during the regime of Babangida. The communique they issue, part of the communique, we will just read some points. Number 1, to eradicate in all its forms and ramifications all non-religions in member nations. Such religions shall include Christianity. In the original declaration, the word Christianity was underlined. Please note that statement, to eradicate in all its forms and ramifications all non-Muslim religions in member nations. Number 1, to ensure only Muslims are elected to all political posts of member nations. So when you see church leaders promoting, sponsoring Muslim ticket, and you talk to them that, look, what you people are doing, don't you understand the implication? Some of them have been given this document. In fact, there is scarcely a denominational leader in Nigeria that has not been given this information. Yet, they still queued behind Muslim ticket. And the Islamists say they want to ensure only Muslims are elected and Christian leaders are supporting them. I still don't get it up till today. I still can't understand it. Number 3, to ensure the appointment of only Muslims into strategic national and international posts of member nations. Number 4, to ensure the ultimate replacement of all Western forms of legal and judicial systems with the Sharia. How many of us are aware that under Buhari, the Attorney General of Nigeria was not a common law lawyer, he was a Sharia lawyer? Malami was a Sharia lawyer in a country that is common law. How many of us are aware that Justice Tanko, who replaced Justice Walter Onogen, is a Sharia lawyer? Is not a common law lawyer. The ground is being tested. And they did it and they got away with it. Then, this point, the government of Nigeria has donated 21 billion US dollar to confirm an Islam in Africa organization communique as donation to this Islamic Development Fund. There are some Christian elites who argued that where did Nigeria get $21 billion to donate to Islamic Development Fund? At times I wonder at some of our elites. A few days ago, it was reported that the president of the Senate took 800 million naira. So far, I have not read any rebuttal. 800 million for birthday. I hope it is not true. As of today, we are still talking about $12 billion Gulf War oil surplus. Money that came in, $12 billion that could not be traced. I have 2 documents which confirm that Nigeria donated 21 billion US dollars to the Islamic Development Fund. It is Nigerian money that is being used for global Islamic expansion. It is the money of this country. And the communique went on to talk of total Islamization of Nigeria in particular and Africa in general. Total Islamization of Nigeria. So, the prayer warriors, the intercessors, you know where you are to focus prayers. For emphasis, remember we said this prayer conference is for the purpose of giving information to intercessors so that they will know how to pray. We are not politicians. This matter will be settled on our knees with the Almighty God. Thank God we have God who hears and answers prayers. So intercessors need to know the seriousness of what we are dealing with. APC is planning to become an Islamic, a one-party government for Nigeria. The Nigerian Constitution 1999 mentions Sharia 73 times, Islam 28 times, Grand Qadi 54 times, Muslim 10 times, no single mention of Christ, no single mention of Christian, no single mention of Christianity, no single mention of church in a country in which Christians are clearly the majority. So, what is Nigeria? A Christian state, a democratic state, or what? There is dual conflicting ideology in the Nigerian constitution. Liberal democracy is in section 38, subsection 1. Sharia inside the constitution runs contrary to section 10 of the constitution. The punishment of Sharia runs contrary to section 34, subsection 1 of the same constitution. Its law of reader that prohibits conversion to another religion runs contrary to section 38, subsection 1. And then the late Justice Mohammed Bello, there was to be a conference of senior legal luminaries, so to say. There was to be a conference. And late Justice Mohammed Bello was to participate. And they were looking at these things plainly just from the point of view of law, not from any other perspective. And Justice Bello wrote in his paper, it should be stated here that the Sharia law as stated in the Quran, Hadith, and other sources is not a written law within the meaning of section 36, subsection 12 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, if all these contradictions are there, what is Sharia doing in the Constitution of Nigeria? He went further to say the offense of reader is inconsistent with section 38, subsection 1, and by virtue of section 1 is unconstitutional. So it has no place in the Constitution of Nigeria, but it is there. And it has been there since 1999. We may have to, let me just run through this, the views, the opinions of some legal luminaries. It is also clear that Sharia cannot be enforced as state law, which was why the Sardauna took the trouble to ensure the passage of the Penal Code and Code of Criminal Procedure in 1960. If the above is correct state of the two laws, then there is the need to return Sharia to the status it was before 1975, civil and personal law. This was from Mr. Solomon Asemota, SAN. The late Professor Ben Nwabueze said, the conclusion is thus inescapable that the prohibition in Section 10 of the Constitution stamps with an indelible taint of unconstitutionality the Sharia criminal law, whether in its original form, as contained in the Quran and the Sunnah, or in a codified form to be enacted by the National Assembly or a state house of assembly. That is the position of the law, but Sharia is in the Constitution. Here, Justice Mohammed Bello, the late Justice Mohammed Bello, he says, Section 38, subsection 1 of the Constitution ensures for every person the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including freedom to change his religion or belief. Whereas under Sharia, change of religion is a capital offense. Consequently, the offense of is inconsistent with Section 38, subsection 1, and by virtue of Section 1 is unconstitutional. That is a Muslim from the north. Let me end with this one. The global legal systems, worldwide, legal systems of countries are classified into 4 main jurisdictions. Civil law. 88 nations are operating under civil law. Number 2, 38 nations operate under common law. Then there is civil law and Sharia jurisdiction. 14 nations are there. And there is common law and Sharia. 5 nations are there. Now, how does it concern us? Nigeria used to belong to the common law jurisdiction, number 2 above. Nigeria used to be one of the 38 nations. Without your knowledge, without consultation, without any national debate, Nigeria was moved from common law to join Bangladesh, Brunei, Gambia, Malaysia, and Pakistan in the new classification of common law and Sharia. So, as of today, the designation of the legal status of Nigeria is common law and Sharia. That's why at home we say Nigeria is a democratic country, but internationally, Nigeria is known as an Islamic nation. The reclassification of Nigeria was not discussed. It found its way into the 1999 Constitution. We've mentioned that of the Attorney General and the immediate past CJN. We will look at this map tomorrow by the grace of God. We'll start from here tomorrow, because we will need to explain some of the things that are in this map. May God help us as we continue. We will stop here for today. Our time is up. I want to thank you for your attention. That which we have shared is for the purpose of prayers. It's for the purpose of intercession. It's for intercessors to understand the issues about Nigeria and go to God in prayers. This country must have peace. And this country, there must be equality. There must be justice. Nobody is stopping a Muslim from being a Muslim. Nobody is stopping a traditionalist from being a traditionalist. Nobody is stopping a Christian from being a Christian. Religion is personal, and it should be left at that level. God bless you all.